Hello everyone, welcome to the channel and thanks for joining me. With all that's going on right now, I kind of wanted to talk about the modern main battle tank. Just going to get right into it. The tank may be at a crossroads right now. Modern conflicts around the globe have highlighted some significant vulnerabilities. Russian tanks in particular, mainly the T-72 and T-80 series, seem to be underperforming in the current conflict. More broadly though, why are modern tanks underperforming in general? The Turkish Leopard 2A4s in Syria have been destroyed by Coronet ATGMs seemingly with ease, and Iraqi and Saudi M1 Abrams tanks have been lost in alarming numbers in recent skirmishes with rebel forces both in Iraq and in Yemen. All of these tanks are very modern, so what's the problem? Now, I'm not an expert on ground combat, but I do understand military doctrine and tactics. What I want to do here is look into why this is happening. Why are tanks being lost in such high numbers? I want to analyze some things like tank design philosophy, tactics, and frankly some choices that militaries make. Some points will apply to all main battle tanks, but some are more nuanced to Russia. Maybe this analysis can explain what's going on. So the first thing I want to address is the state of explosive reactive armor and if it's becoming irrelevant in the modern day. So for Russia, back in the Chechnya wars, they lost hundreds of tanks, well over 200 tanks, both with and without explosive reactive armor. Now, we're some years on from the events in Chechnya, but anti-tank guided missiles have evolved to a state where it seems like explosive reactive armor alone isn't enough anymore. So at least in War Thunder, Gaijin is starting to implement APS systems, APS hard kill systems, because ERA without hard kill active protection systems lacks depth and breadth. So what I mean by that is tanks to survive, it appears now, they need a layered protection system. So let's take the T-90A for example. A while back I made a video on the T-90A and its missing features. So when I say layered defense, I also mean tiered protection. So the T-90A has what is called a 3-tiered protection system, which is comprised of its composite armor, the base level, its Contact 5 ERA, and the Shatora 1 defensive suite. So in this case, of course, the Shatora 1 is not a hard kill APS system, so survivability may suffer a little bit, but it looks like tanks that completely lack an APS system are going to have compromised survivability, especially in modern high-intensity conflicts like what's going on right now, where very modern technology is being thrown into the battle space. So what do I mean by that? We have the rise of cheap and easy to use ATGMs like the Javelin and the next generation light anti-tank weapon, the NLAW, which have made hull and front turret mounted ERA redundant with their tandem warheads. These missiles also have top attack modes that are capable of defeating even roof mounted explosive reactive armor. So if you've been playing for a while, you remember when the TOW2B came to the game and how it was pretty darn powerful. So the unnerfed TOW2B was probably closer to actual capability when we're looking at roof mounted explosive reactive armor at least. So the next thing I want to bring up is lack of infantry support. So tankers are virtually blind when buttoned up inside tanks, and tanks are not designed for 10 and 20 meter engagements in close quarters, and they need their own infantry to accompany them, especially in cities, densely forwarded areas, and areas that offer lots of concealment like, weighty filled deserts. Basic combined arms tactics seem to have been forgotten. Tanks are vulnerable to enemy infantry with anti-tank weapons, especially in built-up urban areas, and they're subject to ambush around nearly every corner. Despite decades of tank doctrine and tank research and development, warfare on this has not changed very much. I mean, just look at this map. If Gaijin ever introduced playable infantry in the game with ATGMs and other anti-tank weapons, just imagine trying to play this city map, driving around with infantry in the buildings, infantry around every corner, infantry behind hills. It would be insane. So like I was saying, Russian, Turkish, Iraqi, and even Saudi tank formations seem to have ignored this basic tenet of combined arms warfare. Tanks are at their best when they can freely engage enemy armor and positions from over, 1 to 3 kilometers away. If they move into areas that offer enemy infantry cover and concealment, they're going to need their own infantry support. But, I've been thinking about this one a little bit, and maybe this is, nuanced to Russian tanks. So at least with Russian tanks, the heavy use of explosive reactive armor, I think, has some consequences. So if a tile of ERA were to be detonated by an anti-tank weapon or a heat warhead, the explosion and the shrapnel could be fatal to nearby friendly infantry. Maybe that's, I don't know, I can't verify anything like that, but I do know I wouldn't want to be close to a tank that was hit as dismounted infantry, because I might catch shrapnel in the face. So the next thing I want to talk about is lack of effective SPAA support. So tanks are always vulnerable to enemy air attack from planes and helicopters. We know that in War Thunder. If you get a heli in a good position, you can lose almost half your team. Aviation, fixed-wing aviation CAS is pretty dangerous to tanks. I know a lot of you tankers out there hate the fact that planes and helicopters are in the game, but there's something even more deadly, and that's the introduction of drones. Armed drones can be a significant impediment without your own SPA systems that are in close and capable of detecting and engaging those drones across a wide spectrum. For example, SPA systems are not usually optimized to track and engage really slow-flying drones, but Russian point defense systems like the Pantsir S, which is a follow-on from the Tunguska, by the way, that system was specifically designed to engage and destroy drones. But the Pantsir itself is being destroyed by the Turkish-built Bayraktar TB2 drones. That also happened in Libya, where the Bayraktar TB2 drones were destroying Pantsir S SAM systems. Also, Israeli-designed Harop loitering munitions, which is a kind of a drone, kind of a kamikaze drone. It's also destroyed Russian S-300 SAM batteries in the I'm going to mispronounce this, the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict in Armenia. Alright, so with the future of drones looking so bright, this is going to be a growth area. Drones are only going to get better. You have to ask yourself, will the tank be able to continue to survive in its current form? We saw when Gaijin introduced drones to the game, armed drones, back in the 2021 April Fool's event. It was pretty fun, but those drones were pretty powerful against tanks. Alright, so let's get on to tank design philosophy before I get to the end of the discussion. But the 3 crew member versus 4 crew member argument's been around a while. And this is really, mostly Russian tanks using the 3 crew. We do have some exceptions in Western MBTs that use autoloaders. But with 3 crew members, there are a lot of considerations. One of them being site security. So if you didn't know, tankers dismount a lot more than you think. They dismount for maintenance. They dismount to eat. They dismount to refuel the tank and other logistical things that are going on. And during those dismounts, you need site security. So with only 3 crew members, you have 1 less crew member available for site security. During tactical movements, you need an air guard. So there should always be someone on the tank looking out for enemy air helicopters, enemy drones, enemy aircraft. So with 3 crew members, you have 1 less crew member that can do that. With vehicle maintenance on a tank, it is really a team sport. Tanks are very complex. For example, when something like the tracks need to be repaired or a tank detracks itself, you need all hands on deck to get that thing going again as quickly as possible. So let's look at the autoloader here. So you can work around a missing crewman, but you usually can't work around a broken autoloader. It's just the tank is out of action until it gets fixed. And like I said before, tanks have a lot of complicated systems that may break all the time, depending on its dependability. You're doing this in field conditions. You're doing this in bad weather. And currently, you will be doing this under combat conditions. So again, 3 crew members is kind of a deficit. Now let's look at some miscellaneous things. In radio silence operations, you often need a runner to go back and forth between tanks and deliver messages. With the 3 crew tank, you have 1 crew member less. Ground guides. Tanks trying to get into positions or get out of positions, you need someone to dismount and guide the tank around, guide the driver. Again, 3 crew members, that's kind of tough. And also, talking to infantry for coordination. It's going to take one of the crew members to talk to the dismounted infantry. So again, you can see where 4 crew members gives you much more flexibility. Now, perhaps this is not a major contributor to the reason why some tanks are underperforming in the current conflict, but those inefficiencies build up over time, and it's at least a minor factor or a minor contributor to overall underperformance of tanks right now, especially the Russian ones. All right, so overall, tank survivability, tactics, and technology have not kept pace with other battlefield innovations. Advanced top attack ATGMs with tandem warheads, drones, loitering munitions, those kamikaze drones I was talking about, and other smart weapons specifically designed to destroy enemy armor are clearly in the lead. Obviously, having air superiority is a basic requirement. I'm not talking about that yet, maybe in a future video, but only now are some nations understanding the need for redundancy and layered or tiered protection for their MBTs should air superiority not be assured. Not being able to be acquired by an enemy in the first place, I think, is a critical first step in a layered or tiered survivability framework. Multispectral camouflage netting systems like the Saab Barracuda and even paint applications like Talon are being actively researched and developed right now, to reduce that signature of the vehicle across the full spectrum. Also, if a tank is hit, being able to survive that hit is a pretty big requirement. So advanced composite armors, advanced reactive and non-explosive reactive armors are also in constant research and development. And of course, kind of like I opened up with in the beginning, if all that fails, all that protection fails, last-ditch hard-kill APS systems like Trophy, Iron Curtain, Iron Fist, Arena, Afghanet, AMP, ADS, they're all being retrofitted to existing armored vehicles in pretty large numbers. And unfortunately, it's kind of being proven right now that those APS hard kill systems are absolutely needed, indeed required to survive. All right, so the tank is dead. Long live the tank, right? So overall, the tank has been here before. In 1973, during the Arab-Israeli wars, tanks were thrown into combat without proper support at times, and they paid heavily for it. Russian-built AT-3 Sagar ATGMs destroyed many Israeli M60s and Centurion tanks. Heat weapons were thought to be able to penetrate nearly any thickness of conventional armor. Military experts thought the era of the tank was over, but these beasts are still with us today. Innovations in armor, mobility, survivability features, firepower, and even concepts will always ensure that an armored core persists. Fundamentally, tank design has not changed in decades, but we're in new territory now. We have lots of new concepts. There's unmanned tank concepts that are coming out. Tanks may look different in the coming years, but one thing's for sure, they will adapt and they will survive and they will meet these new threats. And that's the video for today. Thanks for sticking around to the end. If you're still here, I really appreciate it. The algorithm would appreciate it if you hit a like on this video. Even consider subscribing. And I'd love to hear your comments on this. As always, I want to try to keep this apolitical. Just want to really talk about the tanks in the context that I had in the video. But once again, thank you. I appreciate it. And I'll see you in a future video.